Hello, my friends, and welcome to a brand new episode of Discourse in Magic. My name is Jonah Babbins, and in this episode, we're sitting down with Erik Tait. Hello, Erik. How are you?
Hi, Jonah. What's up?
I am so excited to have you here, fellow magician, fellow podcaster. Just so excited to chat with you. You know, we've crossed some paths before. We crossed paths at Magi Fest, which was lovely. And then you were kind of going to come to Toronto, and then there was a whole giant pandemic. So
I am very upset that I wasn't able to come up and lecture. The Browsers Bash, I was actually promoting it on my podcast for weeks ahead of time. I was like, I'm getting ready to come up there.
It was so exciting, and we were just gearing up for just a really exciting moment for Toronto. There was a few weeks of just crazy, amazing stuff going on, and whatever. Like everywhere in the world, everything came crumbling down. But now we're here. So let's dive into it right now. Let's start at the beginning. How did you get started in Magic?
I was a juggler, and I got tricked into it. Quite literally, that's what it was. I'd had Magic kits as a kid. I did have a set of cups and balls that my dad got me from a magic shop in Atlanta, Georgia. I remember it was really dark paneled wood with backlit props behind glass. I still have that set. It's like a little aluminum set of cups and balls that's it's pretty nice. My dad bought me that, and I messed around with it for a little bit, but I didn't do a ton of Magic until I was 19. I'd been a professional juggler through most of my high school career. I picked it up when I was in middle school, and juggling had always stuck with me, and I was going to be a juggler, but juggling kind of has a shelf life like football players. I got a job at a place called the Comedy Barn in Pigeon Forge. And the owner said, "You're a juggler. You must know Magic. There's our Magic shop in the counter. Go sell magic tricks before the show." And I didn't I knew cups and balls, and that was it. Maybe I was aware of this Fengali deck, but I went behind the counter, and there was a ventriloquist there named Stephen Knowles, and he taught me how to pitch Magic. So I sort of became a Magic pitchman, Magic shop, tourist trick sales guy. Not outside of the type of Houdini stuff, the moment I became a magician.
So, I kind of want to go back in time and then forward in time. I love the stories of hearing magicians who work in magic shops. I think that's one of the sleeper places to get incredible chops. Let's kind of go back in time. Tell me how you were juggling. You were doing it professionally. You're doing it for fun. Talk to me about that.
So in middle school, I went to a Montessori school. So for those of you who don't know, it's hippy dippy hands-on learning. They're usually small private schools. And one of the students' parents were the juggling duo Jesse and James. And they offered to do after school juggling workshops for the kids. So I was in 6th, 7th, 8th grade, and they would come in and teach us to juggle. And then someone wanted to put on an Earth Day circus. I'm not quite sure why. Scott decided that I would be the ringmaster. And so we did this show, and I liked it. And he was like, well, you can make money at this. That's how we pay rent. So he sort of took me under his wing and taught me a little bit of how to put together an act, and introduced me to juggling conventions. My first award was most amazing at the Atlanta Jugglers Festival.
Did you do any juggling professionally, or was it just a hobby at that point?
Oh yeah. By the time I was 16, I had an act that I would do at company parties and corporate picnics, and anytime it was an outdoor sort of festival or event in Knoxville was where I was living at the time, Knoxville, Tennessee. There were all kinds of outdoor music festivals and corporate sort of picnics and company appreciation parties. So I got hired for a lot of those. I'm 16, 17, 18 years old doing these things with comedy bits and juggling to music. It wasn't great, but it was an act.
But it's amazing because it sounds like such an important training ground. There are these things that magicians should do in their early magic. I like to call it being underpaid and overworked, which is to allow you to get really good. And even if you're juggling or whatever, it's just this ability to read an audience and perform and speak and, live in it and get comfortable in it. And I think just time doing it is incredible. And similar with a magic shop, which is another one of those things.
Yeah. The magic shop was it wasn't, so I have worked in a proper magic shop, you would think of the Browser's Den or the Magic Apple or someplace like that. The shop at the Comedy Barn was very much a pitch shop, tourist shop. We sold ball vase, cups and balls, invisible deck, metal photography.
Right. You sold the top 5 things every day.
Oh yeah, and you do you do the same trick 4 or 5 times in an hour. It wasn't so much like the Houdini's type shop where you're selling this top 4 or 5 things all day. The shop was only open for an hour and a half before the show, 15 minutes during intermission, and then a half hour after the show. Because the main seller is actually the video. The Comedy Barn show, which still runs in Pigeon Forge, it's been running for forever. The theater is wired with like 15 cameras, and there's a live editor in a booth. And then the big push is that almost every act in the show has audience participation, and some of the acts are designed to get like 7, 8, 9 people up. So even though it's the room seats 2,000 people, we're going to get, 50, 60 of those people out of the crowd and put them on stage. So then in the booth, when you're selling t-shirts and stuff, your real goal is to say, hey, and you're about to see a show and you will be on it. Everyone in here is going to be on it, because there's a lot of cameras that face the crowd. And then as you leave, you can pick up a DVD. When I first started working there, it was a VHS. So we would sell VHS tapes, and then we switched over to DVD. And I think around the time that I left, they were starting to get like USB thumb drives. But you would put your name down and spend $25. And then as you were walking out, we would hand you a DVD of the show you just saw.
That's fun. That sounds like incredible. Oh my goodness. The fact that you get the DVD afterwards is bonkers.
I've thought about that, like back on that, because I feel like as great as DVD replication is, like you could do that with a USB drive. Like imagine running a show for your client and then saying at the end of the show, anyone who wants a thumb drive with this video or a downloadable link with just like a QR code.
What about giving this to your virtual clients? Because that's really easy to do.
Yeah.
It's so easy for us to do that. And it's such an incredible upsell to instantly give them the download of the group instantly.
When I was working there and we were still selling VHSs, we would have people who would come back to the show. They would pay tickets, and they pay for tickets, and the tickets weren't cheap either. They were like $25, $30 a pop. And they would buy tickets to go see the show, even though the show largely didn't change year to year, because it's a tourist place, right? Like you can do the same show for 10 years and no one will ever see the show twice. But people would come back and see the show because their kids would wear out the VHS and then complain that they didn't have it. So then they would have to watch the show again to buy a new tape so that their kids could see it again for the 30 seconds that they're on when the camera cuts to their family. I mean, the place was just designed to print money.
Wow.
So we would sell those with invisible decks and cups and balls, and literally the lobby would be full of like 300-400 people, and we would shout, hey, do you guys want to see a magic trick? Free magic show over here right now. We would just scream that across the lobby, and then you'd have, 100 people stampede over. You do Svengali deck, invisible deck, metal photography, cups and balls, and then end with magic coloring book. And then you would sell those as fast as you could take them out of the case. That was it.
It's incredible when I think about the value add of the video. For everyone, it's amazing. It's amazing for the Comedy Barn to bring in incredible, talented magicians or young magicians who grow to become more talented, to be demoing and performing and getting better and selling the magic. And also, I mean, for the magicians, it's a phenomenal opportunity.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was an interesting place to work. I mean, I think I've worked with more ventriloquists in one show than any other magician in the world, because we had like 2 vent acts that would be in the show. So they would each do multiple pieces throughout the show. So occasionally there were like 4 ventriloquism routines when I was there, but there was like Bob and Marty Hamill, who worked cruise ships for years. Stephen Knowles, he's no longer at the Comedy Barn, but he's on the Statler Brothers show. Eric Lambert, I think, is still there, but he's the head of APCA. So I worked with like one of the heads of the largest college entertainment bookers association.
Like, it's so incredible because it feels like, we were talking about some of those training grounds for magicians, and you get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, it's wild being in that. Like, I think back now about the fact that I was like 19 when I did this, and I'm sure I was like surly and like thought I knew everything and whatnot. I was just like absolutely like not in the right mindset to learn that. But there's so many things that have come back to me as I've gotten older where I'm like, I was so fortunate to work in these situations and to do, even though my juggling act was maybe 40 to 50 seconds of the show, I was the opening, and I did that 2 to 3 times a day, 51 weeks a year, 7 days a week for 3 years. I mean, I had like tons of flight time in front of 2,000 people, like every show, because we sold out almost every show because it's just the nature of places like that. And it taught me a lot, and it definitely shortened a lot of the learning curve for me.
Wow. So let's talk a little bit more about some of the next phases of the journey. So you did a lot of performing when you were juggling. You got a lot more chops even when you were working at the Comedy Barn. What was next for you? And also, how did you think about it career-wise? I know you ended up coming to Toronto to do some studying. Was that kind of the next step for you?
Yeah, I got fascinated by stand-up comedy when I was in high school. I started sneaking into an open mic at a bar when I was in high school and doing actual stand-up, writing jokes, doing them sort of at the height of the Bush administration. And Lewis Black was a hero of mine at the time. So I was like, I'm going to be like that. I'm going to be a political comedian. And you know what no one wants to hear is the political opinions of a 17-year-old. So I ended up at Humber College. We're studying stand-up, but we're also studying sketch comedy, writing, television producing, mime, dance, clowning. And it was a very collaborative atmosphere because it was all people who were there to learn. And we were all like working towards that thing. And so I was heavily focused on just doing stand-up when I was in Toronto. I didn't do a lot of magic, really became a hobby for me. But it's also like when I got super focused on cards. It's because most of the stuff I was working on at the time was just like in my dorm room with a deck of cards and like messing around with that. So I wasn't like working on big stage tricks or anything. I wasn't really showing a lot of people stuff. So that was where I started to get like the move monkey in me was like, oh, I can actually learn to riffle stack. I can learn to deal from the center. I can perfect my snap deal, work on those things. And I wasn't showing anyone anything. I was literally just learning moves and coming up with new slides and stuff like that.
Well, it seems like a really incredible step in a journey and one that not all magicians get to do. Many magicians either don't go to school for anything related to it or don't have that kind of opportunity or exposure. Is there something that you can take, or rather that we can take from your formal education in this world of entertainment? Was there something that stuck out or a message or an idea that you keep with you that you think allows you to stand apart or do things differently?
Maybe part of it was understanding that performance is a craft as much as it is an art. I think that a lot of times magicians will say things like, this is the art of magic. I practice the art of magic. And they forget that performing and entertaining an audience is just as much a craft as an art. And I'm using the term craft like very specifically as like a learned skill. There is a method to learning craft. I mean, now everyone can learn in different ways, but the thing that they always like drilled into our head at Humber was, you're here because you passed an audition process. You're funny. We can't make people funny. We can make funny people funnier, and we're going to use a methodology to that. But around this whole, whether or not you have this innate sense of funny, there are certain things that you are going to learn, certain different skills. And you should be able to take that away. And I think a lot of magicians sometimes they think that just because they're doing magic, they're engaging in the art, and they're not really engaging in the fact that the performance of magic is a definite skill. And you can learn to be a better performer. You are not just either a great performer or not. You can learn it. You can study it.
Are you saying that magic is more of a craft in the sense that, hey, this is a learned skill, anybody can learn to do it? Or are you saying kind of what your teachers were saying to you, which is that, hey, everyone has some innate ability to do these kinds of things, sleight of hand, entertainment, whatever it is. And yes, you can sharpen it, but some people are really, really good and they're going to be really amazing. And some people are really shit and they're going to get really better, but they're still shit. It's just the best version of
the second one. I think that what is also important about that is that it is okay if you're not great at it. I love comedy. I love stand-up. Am I good at it? Yeah. Am I great at it and I'm going to be like the next Bill Hicks, or am I going to be the next George Carlin? No. So something really interesting happened a few years ago, actually right before I broke, or whatever you call it. Right before I won the IBM, was on Foolish, had my first Penguin lecture, and had one of the best-selling downloads of the year. My partner and I had a conversation, and she said, you've been banging your head against this comedy thing for years, and you're great as a comedian. You're not the best, but as a magician, you really are something special. And so rather than focusing on comedy, why don't you focus on magic for a little bit? Because when magicians watch you, I see magicians watch you and they really like, their eyes bug out when they see it. So that's a tough conversation to have. I said, okay. And then I focused on magic, and like literally within a year, won the IBM, was on Fool Us, had best-selling effects with Penguin, got a job at Penguin. I feel like focusing on that and finding something that I was really good at and something that I really enjoyed really helped. I'm not saying you can't enjoy something, but I think that some people do have an innate ability, but it is also something that can be sharpened, that can be methodically learned. And I think it's important to keep both of those things in mind.
Yeah. I think that something that you're talking about is really easy to see when we talk about things that are physically obvious. Like, I love using the example in favor of what you're talking about basketball, where everybody who plays basketball is of a certain height, minimum. So if you are 4 feet and you are amazing and wonderful at basketball, I think it's bad advice for you to aim for the NBA. I think it's bad advice. I don't think it's bad advice for you to build a career in basketball. That might be the best thing for you. But I think it's bad advice to try to become the first round draft pick in the NBA. It just would be insincere advice to give someone that. And I think when we shift to talking about magic, those things are invisible. It's invisible that someone is a better entertainer or not a better entertainer, has better with their hands or not better with their hands. There's no metric like height, so it's very hard to make a suggestion to somebody, and it's very hard to honestly see what the truth is. Maybe, okay, if you do work a lot harder, maybe you can be a good enough entertainer that can be a great entertainer. There's plenty of entertainers in magic who have made it, who I think maybe worked their way there. That's possible too.
Yeah. I can't remember exactly who I had this conversation with, but it was many years ago. It was Kostya Kimlet had come out with the Roadrunner call, and he was giving, I think it was seminars on it. And someone made the point that you can take the seminar and you can learn the Roadrunner call. You're never going to do it like him, because learning the Roadrunner call from Kostya Kimlet is like learning basketball from Michael Jordan. You're definitely going to learn some great stuff, but you're never going to be Michael Jordan. And that's a thing to keep in mind. Not that his teaching isn't great and isn't amazing, but yeah, I think in magic, some of this stuff does become so invisible that we have a hard time understanding that it's okay that you're not going to be great at it. For example, I don't do a lot of mentalism because I can't make mentalism play. I would love to. I want to do mentalism. I had a Angora sweater. No one buys it. No one is impressed. I can't pull it off. I had to come to the realization that either I was never going to be a great mentalist or that mentalism sucks. And I think it's probably that mentalism sucks and not that I'm never going to be a great mentalist. But
I think it's really interesting what you're sharing, and I'm going to take at it from another perspective, which is that for the artist, for the creator, I think there is a certain amount of trial and error where you actually go, okay, when I do it like this happens. And when I try things like this, that happens. No matter how many times I beat my head against the wall, this one just does not work for me. I just cannot get it to work. And there's always two options. You can either continually try to do it, or you can try another way. And I think that instead of, I'm very fearful about setting people off and being like, you don't have enough talent, so you can get better at your magic, but your magic still sucks. I much rather think about saying, keep doing, keep trying. You will find the paths that are working, and you will stray away from the ones that don't if you do more of it.
Yeah, it's look, I never want to tell someone to their face that they suck unless that they're an awful human. Then I'm okay with that. It's okay to not be great at something you love. And I think that that's something that you need to be okay with that, right? I love playing Fortnite. I stream it on Twitch. Love it. Am I good at it? Absolutely not. not in any way, shape, or form, right? I love coin magic. Am I good at it? Not really. I'm good at 2 coin tricks, and it's fine to be not good at something you love. And that's sometimes, I think for some people, that's a tough thing to come to terms with. I want to be a visual artist in the worst way. I want to paint. I want to draw. It irritates me how good Garrett Thomas is at drawing and painting and magic. No one should be that good at so many different things, right? And it's just it's really irritating. I wish I could do that. I have tried. I've taken classes, and I just I can't do it, right? Now, I can take a great photograph and I can understand all the different things that go inside of composing a decent photo and working in post to make it look really good. But I'm never going to be great at painting or drawing. And I'm just cool with that now. And I think that sometimes accepting your limitations can make you so much better, because then you can devote energy to something that you're good at. That's not to say don't do something you're not good at, because there is a difference between not being good at it and not having practiced enough. I listened to a podcast with Shin Lim, and someone asked him, like, how did you get so good at that? And he said something to the effect of, and I apologize if I'm butchering the quote, but he was like, well, I work on it for like an hour, and if I can't like get it so that I'm happy with it, then I just move on and start working on a different slide. And I was like, that's a really interesting way to look at the world, where it's like, oh, okay, I can't just immediately do Raise Rise after doing it for 2 hours, so I'm going to go do something else. And, he does some very difficult slides, and it's very clear that some of that like just comes more naturally to him.
There's a TED talk about this concept of, we know this 10,000 hour rule, where like you're an expert or whatever it is at 10,000 hours. And it's this talk about, and I don't remember exactly what it is. I think it's like 10 hours or 100 hours or whatever, but it's like good enough rule. And like, to get actually good enough at something, to be able to use it or do it or like function, or play with it or whatever, to see if it might be something that is worth it for you. It doesn't actually take that long, it might actually be a couple hours.
It's disingenuous to not acknowledge that some people are naturally more talented than others. There's just no denying that. We're all very different, right? I can palm a card really well because my hand is shaped a certain way, right? Now, if your hand isn't shaped the same way mine is, you're not going to be able to palm a card in exactly the same way I am. You're going to be limited by that, right? That's not to say that you're not great at something. Everyone is the best in the world at one thing. Sorry, that thing may not also like line up with what you love, or maybe you haven't found it yet, right? Like some people are just supernaturally good at baking, right? Or supernaturally good at making gnocchi or a sauce from scratch. Other people are going to be just like astonishingly good at writing computer code. Everyone is different because everyone is wired differently. Their bodies are built differently. There's just something. And it sucks when the thing that you want to be the best at in the world does not line up when the thing that you are. But that's not to say you can't still enjoy the thing if you're bad at it. It's okay to enjoy things you're bad at. And to be frank, if it's not hurting anyone and you're not hurting yourself, you should continue to do it, so long as you don't do it to the point that you're hurting yourself. When I lecture in rings, invariably someone who is quite a bit older holds up a phone and says, okay, you've cited a lot of books, you perform a lot on stage. How do we get the young people here to understand that real magic happens with people and not on Instagram or TikTok, whatever that is? Can you tell them about that? And I look directly at the kids and I say, if you enjoy doing magic on Instagram or TikTok and it's not hurting anyone and you're not hurting yourself, keep doing it, because no one can tell you not to as long as you're enjoying it. Your success in this matter has no relation on anyone else's opinion of what real magic is and isn't. And I'm sorry, but the virtual space is here to stay. People are going to be doing magic in the virtual space. People are going to do magic on Instagram, and your opinion of what magic is or isn't has no bearing on what someone else's is. And it has to do also, it's the same way with whether or not someone is good at something. It's fine for people to suck at something. As long as they love it, it's okay. And you're not going to hurt magic. You're not going to destroy magic. No one's going to kill magic forever because they're not doing it the way you think it should be. Do you know what happened when Doug Henning first popped onto the magic scene? Every magician in the world said, that's not how you do magic. That's too airy-fairy, hippy-dippy bullshit, right? And then David Copperfield started showing up on television, and everyone said, that's not how you do magic. Doug Henning is how you do magic. That is some weird 90s hair and MTV music looking thing. And then David Blaine showed up, and everyone said, who the hell is this guy? That's not how you do magic. David Copperfield is what it is. And then the same thing happens over and over and over again. And I'm sorry, I got on a little bit of a rant there, but it's just, there's too many people saying this is what magic is and this is what magic shouldn't be. And they're authorities on it when they're really, what they're just saying is, this is how I like to engage with this thing that I love and this hobby that I have. And they're not engaging with this piece of art that I like in the same way that I am. And that's wrong. And that's bullshit. I'm sorry.
I loved what you said there about, Okay, some people might naturally be better at magic. Some people might be worse at magic. And that all being said, continue doing what you're doing. If you want to lecture, great. You should lecture. If you suck more than great lecturers, no problem. If you want to perform, great. If there's better performers, whoop-de-doo. I really, really love that. And I also loved the message on the other half, which is talking about people evaluating what is and what is not magic, which we're seeing a lot of in the virtual space right now. We're seeing a lot of people saying this isn't magic. Oh, this is blah, 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 blah. And
I think how I got on it was like the two things sort of married together where there's a constant balance going on. And it is this. You have to recognize where you are good and where you have limitations. And you also have to recognize where someone has valid criticism of you and invalid criticism of you. And you have to balance those two things. So with the whole rant that I got off on Doug Henning, Copperfield, and David Blaine and all that stuff, like, okay, a lot of those criticisms were invalid, right? But at the same time, those performers got wonderful criticisms from other people in our art that made their shows better, right? David Blaine worked with Gaylord Thomas, got a lot better, right? If David Blaine had worked with me, we'd never know who David Blaine is, okay? Because here we have really constructive, really valid criticism coming in, and if you balance those two things together, then you can also find success and happiness at the same time, which is sort of what the goal is, right? You want to be really successful at something, but you also want to be happy. And those two things are very important to keep in mind in your life.
I love it. And I love the overlap between those two things. And it's always complicated to juggle when we're getting feedback from people, what is correct and what isn't. And it's a little bit of feedback and a little bit of just kind of listening to the audience. I want to move forward and I want to talk a little bit about, how you got to working with Penguin. I'm always really interested in magicians taking their skills in magic and some of their other skills that they have attained in their lifetime and finding work and working and building and creating and making something new and amazing and wonderful in the world that isn't just being a performer. What is it that you do with Penguin Magic? What can we understand about behind the scenes? How does somebody go and work for a big magic company?
So what I do is an interesting answer. I think I would best be described as a producer for them. When you make a product with Penguin, you always come into film, whether it's a physical product or just an instant download, you come to the studios to film with us, and I'm the guy you film with. It's myself and Nick Popa. We work together. We are both camera operators. We sort of work tag teaming, directing it. I'm also the guy who does sort of the first pass on the tutorial. So I'll look at it like once the person is gone and like go through all the footage and go, okay, this is what we need. But I also coach people who have maybe never taught something on video before, because that's a unique skill. Like, let's be totally honest, right? Like, how many magicians have lectured in real life and how many magicians have taught on video? Like, yes, we're getting better at that process, but there's always room for improvement because teaching on video is a relatively recent skill. I can remember when there weren't videos. I'm old enough to remember that. I also do a bunch of other stuff with us as far as like working on producing the lectures, some behind the scenes stuff and looking at new submissions. And I host our podcast and do interviews and stuff like that.
So if magic comes out through Penguin, is it fair to say that it passed through your eyes?
It is likely that I looked at it. Not everything that comes out through Penguin is going to have a hand in it, but I think the dirty secret in magic is when people look at these big companies, they think, oh, it's a massive company, right? It's not. None of the teams are huge. None of these companies are like, have offices in Milan and Tokyo. In Columbus, we have maybe between 12 and 15 people who work in Columbus, where a lot of the stuff is produced. And I would say at least a third of that is specific to manufacturing and not actually like producing videos. The people who actually work on the videos, there's maybe 5 of us in Columbus, 4 to 5, depending on how you categorize it. But there's really only like 3 camera operators and a handful of editors that we work with. There are people sort of flung throughout the world, and those numbers are really rough. Like I wouldn't hold me to them.
Yeah. Listen, no one is going to hold you to them, just for a rough understanding. Let's talk a little bit about producing and editing. I think right now many magicians are figuring out how to teach and share and learn and produce and up their quality and things like that from home. Now, obviously at Penguin, you guys have, big, awesome cameras that do wonderful things. What kind of advice can you give to somebody who is wanting to produce, wanting to shoot magic, what can you tell them?
This is a really good question because we have a lot of magic that comes through the partner program. So there's a lot of things that get advertised in the Penguin email and show up on the Penguin website. And if you like tune into the live stream that Nick Lacapo and I do on Sunday nights where we talk about like some of the top tricks, a lot of those tricks that you're seeing are not actually Penguin products. They come through the partner program. So we are sort of hosting them. If it's a physical product, we're distributing it. But we didn't do the demo. We didn't do the editing. We didn't do the filming. So how do you do that? There are a million YouTube videos out there on how to do good video production, but I will tell everyone listening to this,
they're all wrong.
The first thing you need to do is invest in some lights, and the second thing you need to do immediately after that is invest in a way to record your audio in a way that is like good. And I would honestly, what I would recommend is getting like a little lavalier mic to pin to your chest or your shirt that'll go either into your computer so that you can sync the audio up later, or directly into the camera to record good audio right into that. Because if you think about how you consume YouTube or Instagram videos, you will tolerate marginal quality video, right? You'll tolerate like bad video. What you won't tolerate is bad audio. That's the quickest way for someone to turn something off. And I can't tell you how many times I've looked at something and I go, oh, this is really great, but they really need to up the production value because it's just, I'm not going to sit through 20 minutes of an air conditioner in the background and, dogs barking and keyboards in the background. And you don't need to spend a ton of money to make it really nice. The Paul Draper has a really interesting video on how to set up a home studio for less than $200. That product is designed for you to look at it from the perspective of how are you going to do a virtual show, but it's a really great product for you to also learn some of the basics to do video production if you want to do a tutorial. You don't have to have a camera that's $5,000 with, another $2,000 worth of lens hanging off of it and Shure mics and crazy expensive lighting. You can get like Neewer softboxes for $30 that will improve the way your camera looks. I mean, we could do a whole deep dive on like how to like Ultra Lucky Coin was shot on a Canon T2i with I can't remember the mic, but I think it was like a $15 Amazon mic. It was not, there wasn't a lot going on there as far as the tech and the toys, and that product sold really well.
I have a $50 ring light that makes more difference than two ginormous photography box lights that we have. We just use a ring light. It's like, it makes a big difference.
You get that cool like catch light in your eye where you look like Chris Ramsey.
We look sharp. I love that. And I love the order that you gave it. Is number 1 is lights. Number 2 is sound. Yeah. And then number 3 is you can go and better the video quality and different things like that.
I've seen stuff shot on an iPhone that looks amazing.
Yeah. It's incredible what an iPhone can do.
But then once you've got all the stuff in the can, like obviously you need to like make a cool demo. I think Bander Action is a really good example of someone who self-produced something and the demo looks amazing, but also the demo's super truthful because that you can, if you watch the rubber band tricks he's doing, it looks like trick photography. And he's very careful in the demo to not like make weird cuts where it's like, oh, he's hiding something or he's doing something to make it look sexier. Like it's a really good example of a demo, but also of a really good self-produced thing. That's not a Penguin product. It came through the Penguin Partner Program and it took all of us by surprise. It's really good. But look at the way like some of your favorite products are produced and look at the care that goes into how it's taught. Like, where is the history and the crediting? How are the slides taught? Like for you, the tutorial this is a trick you've been doing forever, right? But for someone who buys it, this might be the very first product they've ever purchased, right? So when you think about like your packet trick and you go, well, this is where you do the Elmsley count. How does an Elmsley count work? I remember a product that came out that we had to re-edit because we totally missed that. And we were able to go back and fix it. And we did, and everyone got the updated thing and it was all fine. But occasionally you make those kinds of mistakes because you're too close to it and you have too much knowledge. And so whenever you go back and try and put together a tutorial, you have to imagine that someone might have absolutely no magical knowledge when you're putting this out. And obviously the type of product you're putting out, that changes, right? If you're selling a pro level routine that is where you have to assume a certain level of knowledge, that's different, right? But if you're selling a trick that's like based on a memorized deck, you better tell someone how to memorize a deck.
Yeah. There's so much to that we forget, especially when people want to start sharing their magic, which I think a lot of people have started wanting to do in the social isolation, because a lot of people are at home and figuring out that they can do some shooting and some sharing on their own. I want to talk a little bit about trends. Obviously, we're seeing some trends towards virtual, some trends towards like self-working and interactive and things like that. But other than that, what kind of trends are you seeing happening across the world of magic or new magic that's being released?
Ooh, I am the worst person to ask that question just because I see so much, but I also I'm pretty focused on the type of magic that I like. I think I do see a more sophisticated prop hitting the market these days. I think it used to be where you would buy a magic trick and it was made in a dude's garage. Like he definitely you would acknowledge there was a certain level of rough manufacturing that was going to go on in this, where it was a guy made 500 of them by himself and put them in a plastic bag. And with the advent of things like 3D printing, there are individual machinists who will do stuff for pretty cheap. Even sourcing props from China and Japan has gotten a lot easier. And I mean, and set aside any of the sort of political or geopolitical things that go along with that, there are certain things that can only be made in certain countries because only they have the technology or are willing to do that because of they're just closer to the raw materials. And as a personal example, when I sourced the magnets for Ultra Lucky Coin, spoiler alert, there's a magnet in the trick. The magnets I needed to get were super thin, and I couldn't get them made in America because the raw material cost, they would break so many magnets trying to manufacture it, and the raw material cost was high enough that it wouldn't have made sense to source it with a magnet manufacturer in the US. So I had to source it with a magnet manufacturer in China, primarily because so much raw material would be used, and they didn't have to pay the shipping cost because the magnetic material that they were using was sourced so close to them. Had nothing to do with the cost of labor, had everything to do with the cost of raw material. That's a thing. And you can go on Alibaba and source things to be made all over the place, custom things, and get shipped to you. So I think you're seeing a higher quality prop when someone makes a gimmick.
That's really interesting that we kind of get a higher quality prop, and we're also getting, sometimes an individual can reach out and make a high quality prop. Doesn't need to be a ginormous company. It can be an individual. It can be, just a few people that actually make something beautiful built just because it's so easy to do right now.
I've seen, so there are 3D printers that you can do laser cutting with. I mean, you're not going to be cutting through 2 inches of steel, but you can do some pretty precise reproducible die cuts in playing cards. And I've seen some products self-produced by individuals using that kind of available technology from the makerspace. That is, 15 years ago, you would have only seen that from, a company like Penguin or Murphy's, who just can manufacture stuff at that level and has those contacts.
It's incredible. It's just what everyone is able to do now is amazing. And I think, one thing that we might be seeing as well is just more volume. Just there's a lot more happening, more new ideas coming, more people are able to try things, share things, build things, get in touch with creators, which is very, very cool.
I think you're also seeing, I think for the most part, you're starting to see more honest demos from people. I'm not calling anyone out specifically here, but it's just, I think that there has been an evolution in the way a trick is demonstrated to someone who's buying it online. I think about I've been involved in the actual production of demos from downloadable tricks from Penguin Magic. I know that there's no fake reactions in those demos because I filmed them, because the process is we walk up to a group of people who look like they're having fun and we say, "Hi, we've got a wonderful magician here. We film magic. Would you like to see some?" And they go, "Yes." And then we go, "Great, go get them, Woody." And then we turn the cameras on and that's it. I kind of can vouch for a lot of those reactions where you're seeing these insane reactions from people and it's oh yeah, the trick can actually get that reaction. Maybe you didn't get that reaction because you haven't spent 15 years with the trick the way the creator did, but the trick can get that reaction. And I'm seeing that type of thing happen with a lot of self-produced demos now. And I keep coming back to Band Action just because I really thought it was interesting, but you saw the same kind of reactions in that where the Dr. Cyril not Cyril from Japan, but Dr. Cyril, the French magician who behind Band Direction, he seemed to be aware of that was when he was putting his demo together, that the reactions are like genuine. At least it appeared to be that way to me. And I see that happening more where people are not going, I think it used to be that people understood the magic of editing and were able to be like, oh, I can get them to fake a reaction and then it'll work like this and then the demo will be better. And people are also now, they're understanding sort of an ethical line that can't be crossed with that for the sake of sales. And so I think that's kind of interesting too, is that the magic demo is evolving. Maybe I'm looking at it from a different perspective.
That's the perspective that we're looking for. And I think it's great that the magic demo is evolving, especially for the reasons that you're talking about, that we kind of want to know what we're getting. We want to know what we're buying. And I love the idea that now I'd rather spend a few extra bucks to buy exactly what I know what I'm getting, but that I know that it's well crafted, than I would buy a giant question mark that's cheaper and have to throw out 2/3 of them because it's just not usable in the way that it should have been.
I've seen some interesting things happen inside of private Facebook groups too with creators. And I'll just use Brent Braun for this example because we had Brent on the Penguin Magic live stream on a Sunday shortly after the FPS wallet came out. And what was interesting to me was that he sort of revealed all of the workings of the wallet inside of a private Facebook group for his magic shop. And when I bought my first Steve drawn Real Man's wallet, I had no idea how that was going to work, right? And then whenever I would buy a subsequent card to wallet, I would never really know how it was going to load. I would just have to kind of trust the ad copy. Whereas like now and Brent's not the only creator I've seen do this. He's just the most recent, where you get inside of a secret Facebook group where you know it's only magicians and you go, okay, here's what you're going to buy. And they do an unboxing video and it's like, this is how it works. This is what the wallet is. You can believe me or not, but I'm telling you that this is what it is, and here's how it works, and here's this part of it that moves, and here's this part of it and this feature, and here's exactly how the card gets in the wallet. And 15 years ago, Facebook was still around, but I don't think you would have seen a magician like put exactly how their product works in an area. Now, card to wallet obviously is a little bit different than something like Kaylin Morelli's metal phone. I'm not sure that you would do that with Kaylin Morelli's metal phone because the secret there is like, you know, you can tell it's good from the demo, but you don't really want to give away the secret. Whereas a card to wallet, we all kind of know there's a secret way to get the card in the wallet. So obviously that's going to be like product to product, but seeing some of these unboxings are really interesting.
Yeah. And we're seeing a lot of different products where the demo is sort of the explanation and you're buying it in order to get that tool that you know exactly what it does, which is a very interesting evolution in the world of magic. Instead of buying a giant question mark and opening it up when it gets home and when you get home and finding out like, what I have to, I remember there was a time where like there were a lot of smoke gimmicks where you would buy them and then you'd find out what you had to strap to yourself and squeeze and punch and jump on and whatever to pump out, a bunch of smoke. And I just remember I never bought any smoke gimmicks, but so I might be misconstruing and I don't want to point any fingers, but I remember people slowly having their demeanor change when they open a box to find out what they have to do to pull that off.
I bought a lot of smoke devices because smoke during a close-up show is money in the bank. Lay people think you're the Michael Bay of close-up magic. It's perfect. But yeah, like there was like definitely an evolution with those where like suddenly you understood more of what it was. I wasn't working for Penguin at the time, but I think the mystery smoke demo was really interesting because you basically saw the device and knew exactly what it was.
I want to move forward and talk a little bit about magic content that isn't related to the world of tricks and new releases, but just related to awesome content for magicians. And you're behind a lot of it, a lot of amazing, wonderful magic content right now, magic podcasts, a fun live Dungeons and Dragons stream, and the amazing Sunday night Penguin stream, which is really, really incredible.
It honestly started as there were two things that happened at the same time. One was, as a video editor, audio was my weakest skill. And also I saw that there was no podcast for Penguin Magic. There was one a long time ago, and there's one of the episodes that we did that actually I met the original Penguin Magic podcaster, Tait France. And that has just sort of like gone away, and there just wasn't a podcast for a long time. And I also noticed that there's a lot of time that we had sort of like downtime where we were hanging out with the creators that were coming through the studios and were having really great conversations with them that would seem interesting. And they would frequently lament that they had something that they wanted to talk about to the magic world that didn't fit in the lecture or didn't fit in the product. And a really prime example of that in one of our early episodes is Carissa Hendricks and her talk on metamodernity, which that one I think sort of started to put us on the map, where people were like, what kind of content is this guy doing? Because I would have never have heard the metamodernity thing elsewhere outside of her lecturing, because she has a wonderful metamodernity lecture. And so I sort of said, well, if I do the podcast, it will force me to get better at audio because I will be having to do it on a regular basis. And I'm very fortunate that I had some excellent teachers in audio to make it sound as good as it does. And then I've got a really wonderful boss, Mandy Hartley, who said, yeah, let's take a flyer on it. This is your baby. Go make it happen. Come back with something and let's see what it does. I was very lucky to have a lot of support from her saying, go do this. There's not really any limitations. Go make what you think the magic community needs. And so it had some rocky starts. There was some really weird stuff in the very beginning. I didn't really know how to interview people. I didn't understand how to set rules for interviews. I didn't know what to ask people. Early on, I set some rules. Like I try not to ask people how they got into magic, because there's a lot of shows that do that. I try not to ask people what their favorite trick is. We do have a segment in it that does revolve around people's favorite tricks, but there's a different intention there. So those two things just like never happen if I can help it. Occasionally those do come up, but usually it's an organic process and there's usually something interesting about it. Also, I listen to a lot of BBC Radio. I really like the way their shows are put together. And I really like the idea of segments. And so I was very firm on the idea that the podcast had to be a half hour. And I actually have data backing up that more people listen to the show if it's under 30 minutes. So I try and keep it to 30 minutes. And so that allowed me to cut off the interview and to be able to do 2-part episodes. But also it allowed me to go, okay, I want to add other stuff. I want to add short elements. So like I got the Desert Island Magic book series. There's a brief series I did, and I was starting to do more of before COVID hit, where it was Muggles on Magic, where Penguin was doing a new show every Tuesday night for lay audiences. I had access to this lay audience, and so I would bring them in and say, describe a trick from a show you saw. Well, I could do the sort of real-time data analysis of, is it really the trick they remember? Well, I can tell you what trick they remembered. The new one that I'm really liking is I really believe in a lot of the work that Magicians Without Borders is doing. And so I spoke to their founder and got just brief 5-minute stories from being out there performing magic in refugee camps and in really impoverished nations and trying to like help people with magic. And so that's a new segment that's coming out called At the Sharp End, which there's some like just gut punching stories that he tells. And then occasionally we have some journalistic integrity, which is, again, I have a lot of support from Penguin in that when something like COVID happens or something like Black Lives Matters happens, it's a way for me to go out there and either look for that story and figure out a way to tell it to the Penguin audience. And I don't have to worry about selling stuff. I mean, there are episodes with no advertising because I'm like, it's more important that we focus on this. We did a really great thing in collaboration with the Pittsburgh Cultural Trust, where Erik Jones facilitated a conversation among a number of African-American magicians about what it was like being black in magic. And there's not an ad in that entire in that entire thing. It's a rebroadcast of something, but we worked really hard to put that together. Same with another one where we had Rory Rennick and Randy Shine talking about what was going on in that community. And I was able to step back and say, please have this conversation, because I won't be able to ask the right questions, let alone relevant ones, because I don't have this background. It's been fun, and I'm looking forward to doing more stuff with it. There's going to be ads in it because it is supported by Penguin, and I have to be able to pay for the mics and the hosting service. But now we can offer discounts, which is really cool. So if you listen to the podcast, there's a featured download of the week. Nick and I talk about it. You can hear like you can really hear some behind the scenes stuff and like hear more about what it is rather than just read the ad copy and the demo and have to decide. Like Nick and I can tell you like why it's cool. I have a lot of freedom to choose what that magic is. So you can get a discount code to get 25% off on the download, but I can choose stuff that I think is cool and has an interesting method. So if a product shows up there, it's not because we need to move 50 units of this, Erik. It's because I looked at the trick and said, that's something cool. I want to share that with people.
Dude, I love it. And it's really cool the way that you're able to explore on your own and find fun avenues to journalism and whatever ways you want to express yourself and dig deep and share what the magic community needs. And also that it's an opportunity to, again, help Penguin share some amazing new magic and showcase new people. And it seems like a success from many ways. And it's wonderful. I love, the way I feel about podcasts is the more magic podcasts, the better. People, this is an open call. I've done it before. I'll do it again. If you're starting a magic podcast, you want me to be on yours? The answer is yes, I will be on it.
Yeah. And I'm happy to do anyone else's podcast. I've had 3 or 4 podcasts reach out and ask me to be on, and I'm totally down with it. It's fine. It's a good medium. It's fun. It's cheap to get into.
It's fun. It's easy. It's wonderful. And I love taking these important conversations that don't happen for everybody and putting them out into the world. And I think it's wonderful. So I'm very grateful for what it is that you're doing. And thank you so much for doing it. And I also want to talk about this Sunday night stream that you guys do with Penguin. And I think it's really incredible. And I'm not sure, how many people have seen it or haven't, but to me, it kind of feels like a mix between a sports broadcast and a magic chat, and it's just really unique, which is exciting for me, because I think we don't need to see more things that look exactly like other things, but things that look really creative and unique, and it's very, very cool. So talk to me about what it is, how it came to be, what is the Sunday night stream?
So back when COVID first hit and lockdown happened, I started to mess around with Twitch streaming, just because I was like, well, can't go to the browser's bash and lecture, can't do shows. These video games, I watch Twitch. I wonder how hard that is, and I wonder if I can do it. And it wasn't an effort to make a show or do something performative. It was mostly like a hobby. What can I do with the gear that I have to make this as high a production quality as possible? I'm wondering, I'd always been curious as to how Harris Heller's stream looked the way it did, or why Ninja or Shroud or some of these big streamers and the way they did. So I started doing that independently. And that led to a whole bunch of other different things. I help people build their streaming shows now, because I understand some of the software and some of the gear involved. And then at the same time, we were kind of we've been talking about doing different content for YouTube. So Penguin has filmed a whole bunch of special content for YouTube, all these top 10 lists. And a lot of them are me and Nick Lacapo talking about different things. And Nick is also very fascinated by Twitch. We both watch quite a bit of it. And he watches some of the Just Chatting streams and some of the art streams. And it was just, the Twitch world is fascinating. And then we were saying, well, we think we can do that. The Penguin lectures used to be streamed from this studio. So I wonder if any of that infrastructure is still in place, because our studio, once a year, gets ripped apart and put back together because we want to do different things. That's just, when you have a studio, you do that. Toronto Magic Company, I'm sure you guys tear apart your own personal studio and put it all back together.
We've only had a personal studio for about 8 months since there's been a pandemic. So it's just grown better and better. We haven't really torn it apart yet, but we're about to do some crazy stuff for the Halloween show. So I guess, we're going to do some weird
You're going to tear it
stuff
apart. You're going to plug all the cables back in together.
Yeah.
And so
I guess that's true. We've torn this place apart and put it back together multiple times already.
Oh yeah. And it's just, it's kind of fun. So one day we said, well, and then a sort of another thing that was going on was, about every other month, Nick Lacapo and I would take a snapshot of the current top 20 tricks on Penguin and talk about them on the podcast. And we also noticed that they were some of the most listened to podcasts. People really wanted to know our thoughts behind them. We got a lot of messages about it. So we said, well, let's try that on Instagram. And the first live stream we did was on Instagram, and it was literally our camera guy is holding a cell phone and going back and forth between us. This is a horrifying idea. It's so, we've got motion sickness watching it. We said, well, that was fun, but it probably looked like garbage and sounded terrible. Could we use the cameras in the studio, and could we do it on Facebook? And so I said, I think I can do it, because I was streaming to Facebook gaming for a little bit. I said, I think I can take the skills that I'm using at home and do that. So we came in the next week, and Nick had chosen the top 20 things. And I got us on Facebook with just our cameras and sound. We were just let's try that. And we did it. And 50 people tuned in, out of nowhere. We were oh, cool. And they're the chat was really active. And so we were okay, well, we're going to try this next week. And so Nick went home and Nick's a big sports fan, watches ESPN all the time. And he called me up and he said, I think I can make this look like ESPN if you can put the graphics in there. And I said, I can definitely put the graphics in there if you can make them. And so he went home and he designed all of the different overlays that you see for it with all the Magitar down here. And he said, and so he sent all those resources to me and I built it inside of the software we use, which is OBS, which is a free software, by the way, for those of you wanting to do your stream at home and you want to make it look as cool as the Penguin live stream. Like, we're using free software to put that together. I think the only software in it that like actually costs money that we're using is Nick uses Photoshop, but there's plenty of free resources to make those images. They're just PNG files. They're nothing special. And then I put it all together, and then we have Nick Popa running all of our cameras. And in order to keep our studio safe when we're filming with people, all of our cameras are on remote pan tilt heads now. Like, if you come in and you give a lecture, like, all of the dynamic camera work you're seeing is Nick Popa just like understanding how to use these pan tilt heads and zoom in real time. And he's really skilled at it. So he's switching the cameras, he's running the graphics and controlling the cameras all at the same time. And every week it just sort of grew into this, well, what if we had TVs behind us? What would that look like? And can we put a projection behind us? And then I should also say, we didn't really ask permission. We just started doing it. And then management was like, hey, if you guys want to grow your, like, this seems really good. Do you guys want to start giving discounts? And we were like, yeah, we'd love it to, we'd love to be able to give discounts. So this coming week, the show is transitioning from the top 20 to the Cool Box Live. This coming week as we're taping this recording, but we're going to start dropping like serious discounts, which is neat because we get to show the trick, say some cool information, like save money for the customers, which is really neat. And then it also, we figured out how to bring people in virtually, which sort of grew out of this weird Dungeons and Dragons stream that I do with Carissa Hendricks every week, where I'd been wanting to play Dungeons and Dragons, and someone had like come to me and said, hey, if you stream it, I'll find a dungeon master. And I was like, cool, can I invite some friends? And they said, yeah. And so we ended up with, it's me, Katie Osborne, who's a really wonderful magician and mentalist, and also has a big TikTok following, Carissa Hendricks, and then a couple of comedians, Rory Eustace and Jackie Shreves. And then our DM is a guy named Matt, who's just like a really awesome software guy. So we have a lot of fun, but we had to, in order to stream it, I had to figure out how to bring 6 people who were not in the same room all into the same stream at the same time and keep everyone's audio and video good. And it was just like a challenge. Like, I wanted to do it. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to be a big Twitch star. We're going to be like the next Critical Role, which is one of the big D&D streams. It was just, I wanted to do, this part was interesting. This was like a fun hobby that I was doing on my own. And then it just sort of dovetailed into what Penguin was interested in. And so getting the D&D stream together turned into, we were able to have Juan Tamarez live with us, do a trick for us from Verbal Magic, which was insane. Like, we're here in the afternoon. So if you want to watch the D&D stream, by the way, it's every Thursday on Twitch at twitch.tv/suspiciouswizard. The first I is a 1. It's 7 p.m. The stream goes for 2 hours. We have a lot of fun in the chat. You can see me and Carissa Hendricks almost get murdered by orcs every week. It's a lot of fun. But then the Penguin stream is every Sunday night at 9 p.m. And you can tune in and save a bunch of money. But it was just, it literally grew out of like 3 people in Penguin were having fun in the studio and wondering if we could do something. And then we did, and it kind of snowballed out of control into this like wonderful behemoth thing that it's become. And now it's on, you can watch it on either Facebook or YouTube, because we perfected multi-streaming a couple of weeks ago, and we're looking at adding Twitch as well. So we'll be on 3 channels live all at the same time. And it just seems like it's going to continue to grow because it's something that like Nick, the Nicks and I and Josh Birch, who runs the chat, are all very passionate about making this thing look cool and making it interesting, and also interacting with the Penguin customer. Because it's like, we can make stuff, we can make better magic, and we can tell you, we can make the magic that you want. We can make the products better, and we can save you money if we're able to talk to you. Like, a really cool thing that happened on the stream was Gregory Wilson's Fistful of Dollars showed up in the list. And it's a great trick, right? But it has an issue when you sell it, when you look at it sometimes, where you go, does that use the special thing that I think you're using? And you go, yeah. And you can't really sell someone the routine without the special gimmick, but the gimmick is something that a lot of people have. And so if you look at it, you go, I don't want another one of those because I've already got this one. So I'm not going to spend the money to get this. So it's like the production in Fistful of Dollars is super cool. And so someone in the chat like brought that up. They were like, I really want Fistful of Dollars, but I don't want to spend that much money because I don't want to have a duplicate of this thing. And it's a thing that's like not easily damaged. So having a backup like doesn't make a lot of sense for me because I'm a hobbyist. And they said, can I just buy the tutorial? Like, what would that be? And so we went, I don't know. Can we do that? And so that happened like live on stream. And like literally 8 hours later, the decision came down. Yeah, we could totally sell it that way. We didn't realize people wanted it that way. So like that's a direct example of how someone came into the stream and said, can we do this way because of all these things? And we said, we didn't know that was a thing that was a problem. And we made it a reality. And now you can get Fistful of Dollars as a download for $15. And if you already have the prop, you don't need to buy the full version of it, which ships you everything. So it's I don't know. It's transformed into something really interesting that and I think we're very uniquely positioned to do it. And so it's a combination of people being very passionate about a strange, unique niche hobby that requires a fair degree of technical skill and being positioned with the right technical gear and the right backup team to be able to do it and genuinely having fun on the show.
I love it. And I love that it exists. I think it's wonderful. And like we kind of said about podcasts, the more opportunities that magicians can go out there and share and talk and communicate, the better that magic is going to become. I think that gone are the days where, while magic magazines were really cool, it's kind of like one way. You like read a thing, you're like, yes, I want it. You mail out for it or something, which is bonkers. Now you can talk to the creator and make sure that it really is the thing that you want it to be, or at least talk to the people that are selling it or understand it or produce it or anything like that. Like you said with Tamariz, chatting with him about verbal magic is incredible because it helps reliven, books that it's one thing to say to somebody, yes, there's gems in this that help right now for virtual. It's another to be like, watch it happen right now from the creator and see how amazing this stuff translates. So it's really wonderful, and I recommend people check it out. We are nearing the end. There's a few other wonderful things that I want to chat about. I know we kind of went into the penguin rabbit hole, but I'd love to zoom out a bit and talk about your magic. We spoke before getting on this. You said that you have a specific view of what magic is and what magic isn't for you, of what your magic is. Do you want to explain that so that people can understand and maybe we can dive a little bit into it?
If you watch my Fool Us routine, which is also my IBM routine, whether or not you like it or not, what that routine was born from was I like unusual, esoteric, and difficult card sleights. That's where I live. I like doing balls to the wall stuff right under the nose of a lay audience because it's a lot of fun for me. The more unnecessarily difficult it is, the better. You should see me do the ambitious card. There's no reason you should do the ambitious card the way I do it. It's just something I like. It's just something I do. And I kind of want people to know how difficult this stuff is to do. Like I want them to know that this is hard. And that we talked a lot about juggling, and I think it definitely comes from the fact that I started as a juggler where jugglers will like throw the ball a couple times in the air to like catch it, and then they'll do the big trick, and then you'll get because they're building up this idea that something's difficult. But I approach magic like that a lot, and so it's everything that I do has an explanation, and you just may not know the explanation. Sometimes I'm lying to you about the method, right? I have a handling of the Mayhew poker deal that just blatantly says out, this is a false deal. And like, this is what a middle deal looks like. And now I'm going to do it for you 10 times in rapid succession. It allows me to play with ideas like coincidence. It allows me to play with the idea that maybe I'm not just manipulating cards, but I'm manipulating the social situation that we're in. And I think that that's a fun way to approach magic. It works for me. It doesn't have to work for you. But I think where a lot of it also comes from is that, like, I talked earlier about I wanted to be a mentalist, but I could never really sell it. Well, I think what it comes down to is that I can't really sell that I have powers or that something is mysterious. But what I can sell is that I'm going to do something really difficult and you're going to be impressed by it. And so I don't know. I think finding that and making that realization, I think really helped drive the way I do magic and the reason my audiences like it and why the magic world seems to accept me for what I'm doing. I don't know. But yeah, it's that.
It's phenomenal. And the reason I wanted to chat about it before we start wrapping up is I think that each one of us does magic a little bit differently. And for you to know the way that you do magic, know the way that you interact with it, and know the way that you feel about it really helps. One of those things we were chatting about earlier, which is getting feedback and hearing from people and knowing what roads to go down and what roads not to go down. So having an understanding for what magic is and what magic isn't for yourself takes time, and it takes time in the field, and it takes doing it, and it takes learning, and it takes error, and it takes, oh, this doesn't work and this does work for me. But I think the more that we can do that, and the more that we can make soft rules for ourselves about how we do things and what things work for us and what things don't work for us, allow us to move forward very, very quickly.
This approach to magic doesn't necessarily preclude me from doing other stuff. I do double cross, because if you're working for real people and you're not using double cross, you're stupid. It's so good. Double cross is amazing, right? And I don't have a skill-based way to present it. I just kind of do it, and I get screams and reactions and freak people out. But one of my favorite tricks right now is, or at least before lockdown happened, was Roddy McGee's Flight 101. It's a ring flight where the borrowed ring appears on the borrowed spectator's keys. I could make a big deal about look how hard it is to get things on this key. Maybe not. I'm still doing magic periodically. I'm just not really worried about creating the mystery. I'm more interested in just doing something, and it's okay if you don't know how it works. And we don't have to have a reason for why it works. You can just be aware. Lay audiences know sleight of hand exists. So why try and hide that, right? I mean, that's just my opinion of it, but maybe I'm not. I think when you try and make something appear totally and completely hands off, I feel like sometimes some magic can be so hands off and so perfect. I know the two perfect theory is out there, and I'm not trying to say that I'm inventing the true perfect theory or anything like that. But I think that if you don't acknowledge the fact that your audience is smart enough to know that this is just a trick and it's not real, and you don't have that in there, they won't be willing to go on a journey with you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
I know that I just described the true perfect theory exactly what it is, but I think that it is rooted in this idea that audiences know that you're lying to them. They know that you can palm a card, right? And they know all of these things. They know we have special devices and gizmos. So just own it and move on with your life rather than try and deepen the mystery, I think. Not that deepening a mystery is a bad thing, but don't let that stuff hold you back. Let it exist.
Love it. We are nearing the end of the episode, and we have a bunch of wrap-up questions that each and every one of the guests have. So the first is the endless chain. In order for this podcast to go on for eternity, each guest is asked to recommend another guest that would be incredible for the show. There are two catches. The first catch is I cannot have already interviewed them, and the second catch is that you have to be able to put us in contact. You can't just say David Copperfield unless you can put us in contact, in which case, go for it. So who do you think would be a wonderful addition to this podcast?
I think that probably Nicola Capo would be interesting, only because there's I can think of no other person in magic who is one of the best close-up workers that people don't realize is the best close-up worker in the country, because his job for 7 years has been take this trick, learn it, go do it well enough to do it on film. There's almost no one who has that. And he's the new Oz Perlman. Right? He is the Oz Perlman for somebody. So I think he would be a good one.
Yeah. And by the way, I just I saw him, I think 2 years ago or something at Magi Fest demoing some stuff. And I was just this guy's the real deal. So definitely someone that I should chat with. Thank you for that recommendation. The next question is in the world of modern magic. So magic is changing. It's constantly changing. What is something right now in the world of magic that's happening that you like, and something right now in the world of magic that you don't like?
I think I like the awareness with which magicians are starting to understand that they are affected, they're a part of culture and society. And there's a lot of things going on right now with Black Lives Matter and Me Too that have been problematic. And I'm not one to say that I was never problematic. I can think back to specific instances where I was problematic, and I owe people apologies, and I will endeavor to apologize when I can. But I think that there's a real growing pain going on right now that is happening and is important. the fact that the Shazam podcast has more listeners than almost any other Magic podcast that I'm aware of is a really good thing. I think whether you like it or not, that is a good thing that is happening. I think it needs to continue to happen, and it's not going to be painless. It's going to be painful and awful, and there's going to be a lot of crying and screaming and people having to look themselves in the mirror and understand some things. And those are all really good things. I think back to some of the things that when our company made the Black Lives Matter movement, some of the messages we saw were really toxic. And I have to imagine that some of the messages that other companies that made similar statements must have been equally toxic. And it was kind of horrifying to see that stuff. So what is happening is good, as painful as it is. What is something that I don't like? My heroes dying, get the inevitable and inexorable march forward of time, people that I looked up to. I mean, it's just I had a weird experience at Magi Fest the year after I won the IBM, was because I had always been the guy who sat in the corner at the convention, who was too afraid to walk up to Williamson, who was too afraid to walk up to Juan Tamariz, who always
those people are still alive, by the way.
I know.
Oh my goodness.
And I wish that I had gone over and talked to some of my heroes in the past at Magic conventions. Williamson and Tamariz are bad examples, but there are magicians who I've been at conventions at, and I wish that I had walked over and said, "Hi, I just wanted to say hello. I really appreciate your work. Thanks very much." I got to go to a thing with Ben Earl, and he said that something he said that really affected me was when someone says they like your work as a magician, it's different than when they say they like your work as an actor or something else. Is because what they're really saying to you is, I like the way you think, and I also kind of think like that. So it would be nice if we could think like that together. And that's a really beautiful thought. And I had people do that to me at Magi Fest, and I'd never experienced that before. And I want anyone who likes my work and wants to talk to me about my magic when they see me at a convention, I don't want you to sit back and be too afraid to come talk to me because I work for Penguin or I was on television or I won an award. I want you to come sit down and hang out, because I regret more than anything else not doing that with my heroes. Not that I should be anyone's hero. I should not be. If I'm your hero.
But one day you will die.
Yeah, one day I will die, and you won't be able to do that, and you'll regret. So I think that's it. It's just that, like, the inexorable passage of time.
I love it. And the last and final thing is plugs. Where can people find you, and where can people find your stuff and what you're up to?
So you can listen to the podcast at podcast.penguinmagic.com, or if you search for the Penguin Magic Podcast, we're in all of your podcatching apps. You can catch me on Twitch. I stream every Tuesday at 10 p.m., Thursday at 7 p.m., and Friday at 10 p.m. It's twitch.tv/suspiciouswizard. It is SUSP1 CIOUSWIZARD. I had to have the one in there because some jerk is squatting on the real one. But I stream both video games and Dungeons and Dragons, and sometimes I just hang out and just chat. So if you ever want to talk about magic or music or whatever, that is a really great place to talk to me. And you can catch me on the Penguin Magic live stream every Sunday night on Penguin Magic's Facebook and YouTube pages, and maybe soon a Twitch. But those are the places to catch me.
Very, very cool. Well, thank you, Erik, for all that you do for the world of magic, helping these conversations be had online in different places and facilitating more learning and more communication and just wonderful things in magic. So thank you for everything you do. Thank you for joining me on this episode. And of course, a big thank you to everybody who listened, tuned in, and learned a thing or two here today on this wonderful day. Thank you so much, and I'll see you later. Peace.